Can I help you? Oh. You're the individual that requested to join my research team. I see. I mean no disrespect, but are you sure you have the mental capacity to follow along with my theories? So what if it's rude? I'm on the cusp of something great, yet no one in this godforsaken university believes me. It's almost like they think I'm crazy. Imagine thinking that Colette Bachelier, the second daughter of the great Marquis Marcel Bachelier, is a crazy woman. I'll show them. I don't need their useless funding. I'll fund everything myself. The only problem is, they won't allocate people to my research. Apparently, there's nothing educational in researching a children's story. But I'm getting ahead of myself once again. Why exactly did you want to join my team? Oh, a kindred spirit. Intrigued with the origins of Unterram, are you? Wonderful. At least you have one apparent good quality. As you likely know already, the bulk of my research is centered on discovering the hidden history of Unterram. Of course, everyone knows how the Empire rose from a single kingdom, and that the civil war in Drachenfrey resulted in the formation of the Grand Duchy. But there's not a single person in Unterram that can tell you what ancient Unterram was like. That's what I want to know. Yes, ancient. As in before the formation of the nations we know today. It's all right if it's difficult for you to comprehend. Don't strain yourself. Tell me, what is the standard children's tale that is told all throughout Unterram? The other common children's tale. No, I'm talking about the story of the Kingdom of Unterram. Within it, it states that the entire continent of Unterram was unified under one kingdom. Do you remember the rest of the story? No? Well, sit down then. It's story time now. Shush, 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 shush. This is pertinent to my argument. All right. The king of Unterram had 3 sons. However, as the boys grew into young men, the king grew concerned of their behavior. The oldest was a man obsessed with the throne and the undeniable power that came with it. The second oldest seemed to have an insatiable bloodlust. He yearned for the days of old when battle was the kingdom's lifeblood. The youngest, however, shined far less brightly than that of his older brothers. Often he was left in the background, forgotten. Rather than passing down the crown to the oldest, as per tradition, the king decided to present the 3 of them with a simple question. Whomever gave the right answer would be given the crown and would become king. One evening, the family went out for a walk, and at the end, the king presented the 3 princes with a single question. What is the most important thing a leader can have? The eldest and the middle brother couldn't help but smirk. To them, the answer was obvious. The eldest said, power, and much of it. People are like sheep. They flock to those with power. The middle brother puffed out his chest and boasted, clearly the right answer is land. What is the purpose of power if you don't put it to use? There are lands beyond this kingdom. They are all rightfully ours for the taking. Neither of these were the answers the king was waiting for, so he turned to the only one that remained, the youngest. With a newfound sense of determination, the youngest met his father's eyes and said, "It's people. Without his people, he is nothing more than a man. But with his people, he can be so much more. Slowly, a smile crossed the king's face. Finally, the answer he'd been waiting for. Shortly after, it was decreed that the youngest son would be the next king. A feast was held within the palace soon after to celebrate such monumental news. It was an event filled with joy and cheer for all, except two. The two remaining brothers were poisoned with such fierce jealousy. All they could think about in that moment was how their younger brother, the weakest of them all, was now given power that was rightfully theirs. It didn't take long for them to make a plan of their own. Throughout the revelry, they played nice and hid their resentment under false smiles. In a moment of sheer joy, the youngest raised his drink and gave a toast to their shared love of each other, before drinking every last drop. Those were his last words, for his brothers decided to surprise their sweet baby brother with a poison equally as toxic as their very hearts. It was in silence that the two remaining brothers cheered. They knew now that either one of them had a chance for the throne. Someone deserving of the title would be king, and no one would have to know what they had done. But suddenly, a loud rumbling erupted from the sky, and a bright light ripped through the room, blinding everyone momentarily. When everyone opened their eyes again, they were frozen in fear. There stood the youngest. He looked otherworldly. Emanating from him was a golden glow, and his eyes were an unnatural, piercing color. When he spoke, however, it was obvious that it was someone else speaking through him. What the two brothers did was manage the unthinkable. They angered the goddess F4A. In her eyes, the two were made up of all of the mortal qualities she hated. It was not for people like them that she waged war against the deities of old. In their gambit to play the role of death, they sealed their fates. In her borrowed body, she struck down both of the brothers and forced them to stare into the very eyes they dared to betray. In the end, the king lost all of his sons and decided there was little in life left to live for. Shortly after, the king disappeared from Unterram. All that was left behind was a letter requesting that the kingdom be split apart, and the pieces given to his advisors. In time, the kingdom of Unterram was forgotten. Don't you see? My theory is that the story is partially based on truth. There likely was an ancient kingdom that unified all of Unterram. But with time, the stories faded away. This is just about the only story that survived. You think it's far-fetched as well, don't you? No other historian has an explanation that makes sense. Ask them. Ask them why ancient ruins in both the Grand Duchy and the Balian Empire have close similarities. You mean to tell me that ancient people in both the West and East just so happen to mimic each other? One would argue that Unterram is more connected than it ever was before. But even now, there are such stark differences between nations. Take me, for example. You can likely guess that I was born in a region, yet now I live here, in Kirjaan Matahari. These two nations are neighbors, yet they have such differing cultures, ways of life, and values. When I came here, there was a great deal I had to grow accustomed to. Yet these so-called historians expect me to believe that people in ancient Unterram lived in separate groups, yet somehow were all unified in thought. Idiotic. Joining me is entirely up to you. I will not disgrace myself by begging for your help of all people. I've managed to do just fine on my own. But if you want to be at the forefront of something groundbreaking, then there's a spot open for you. Well, you don't exactly have competition. And you listen to me ramble about my theory without rudely interrupting me. I suppose that was good enough to earn a position on my team. But before you accept, note that I am the leader of this research team, and I am also funding all of this. Of course, that doesn't mean you can't present your own theories regarding ancient Unterram, but they should build off the idea of there being a kingdom of Unterram. None of this separate kingdoms drivel that the university likes to push on historians. Also, the main goal of my research is to not only prove that the kingdom of Unterram existed, but to find evidence of their previous capital. Very little is known about it, but I did find some old texts back home that I'm currently studying. I would allow you to peruse my selection if you wished. While I pride myself on being meticulous, it couldn't hurt to have another pair of eyes to read through the material. If all of this seems like a waste of time to you, then you're free to walk off and call me crazy like the rest. You think you'll be staying? Wonderful. Then make yourself useful and fetch me this list of books from the library, would you? Less complaining, more fetching. Thank you.